Welcome to the Outlander Unhinged podcast, where we talk deep dives, wild theories, and the heart of Outlander. I'm Doreen.
I'm Liz.
I'm Jenny.
And I'm Katie. Grab your snacks, Sassenachs. It's time to talk about Outlander.
Welcome to episode 2. I am so thrilled for today's episode because we are going to be deep diving into some of Outlander lore and magical elements of the stories. Jenny, should we let everyone know today's topic?
Today we are going to be discussing Brian Fraser, Selkie lore, and the role folklore and mythological creatures play in Outlander.
I am so excited. I love this topic. I think we should start with the Selkies, mostly because they're my favorite, but also because Blood of My Blood seems to be kind of tapping into this lore, which is such an interesting choice.
It's almost like the showrunners finally heard us begging for more of the magic from the books because there's so many different elements and layers that Diana has written about.
Yeah, they really said, here you go. Here's what you've all been asking for, and I'm loving it. Now, for me, Selkies are very interesting because they're explained a couple different ways depending on which version you're reading about, and it could pertain to several different stories in Outlander. That being said, in every version of the folklore we hear, Selkies are described as shape-shifting creatures that can transform between their human and seal forms by shedding their seal skin. The first legend states that a man secretly sees a Selkie come to shore and take off her seal skin. As she removes the skin, she transforms into a woman so beautiful that he falls in love with her instantly. He then steals her skin and promises her that he will give it back to her after a certain amount of years if she agrees to marry him. The Selkie, she has no choice but to agree, marries the man, and they have children together. But the Selkie, despite being a wife and mother for many years on land, is always longing for the sea. She always feels that she's living in another world. The second Selkie story says that the male Selkies will use their powers and sing a song to lure a beautiful woman away from her family, putting her under a spell and forever keeping her with him. Both male and female Selkies are described to be hauntingly beautiful creatures with black hair and pale skin. Sound familiar? Mm-hmm. Sounds like Claire and also Jamie's father Brian to me.
It sure does. Brian and Ellen's storyline is where this all ties in. As we're seeing it play out on the new prequel with Brian and Ellen, they have a very Romeo and Juliet kind of romance. They meet at the Great Gathering and are immediately drawn to each other. There was no wasted time between the two of them in Blood of My Blood this last week. None. The problem is she's a Mackenzie and he's the bastard son of Lord Lovett of the Fraser clan. The union is forbidden. Of course, like every other love story, Brian and Ellen, they don't care. They go with their feelings, they run away together, and they hide out secretly, eloping with a handfast. That was my favorite little scene that they put in.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't expecting it, so when it showed up, that had me in tears.
It ruined me.
Oh my gosh, ruin me.
It's the new Bolt the Door. We are taking Bolt the Door off the table, and it is Ruin Me.
It's the new... It's also the new, I said I was a virgin, not a monk.
Oh.
To bed or to sleep.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and then Ellen ends up immediately pregnant, which causes an uproar in both the Mackenzies and the Frasers. And it eventually leads to Brian's father, Lord Lovett, disowning him. And this is when the agreement is made to make Brian the Laird of Lollybrock, and they are gifted the estate. They are then officially married on the steps of Lollybrock when Ellen is really pregnant. So this deal comes with stipulations about how the castle can pass to only Ellen's issue. So if Ellen dies without an heir to the estate, it will revert back to the Mackenzie clan. And this whole situation is where the rumors of Brian being a Selkie began, because no one could believe that Brian was able to lure Ellen away from her family and her clan.
So
Have you
true.
seen that man? He could lure me away, without a doubt. You
Same.
know, come on.
Yeah, I'll hitch a ride any
Okay.
day. Let's go. Let's go.
Ruin me.
Too bad or too sleep
Oh,
ruin me.
listen, that might be a T-shirt down the road.
It's
Never
definitely
know.
going on one of my bookmarks for sure.
There you go.
Oh, excellent.
Good idea. I would say Brian's physical attributes played a huge role in the rumors about him being a Selkie since he kind of looks like one, right? I mean, Brian's said to have slick black hair that seems wet all the time, cat like eyes, calculated movements. We can see in the prequel Blood of My Blood that Brian is portrayed this exact way as well. And in the books, Claire actually has whiskey colored eyes, porcelain skin. She's also very tall and at times moves with a type of
Mhm.
elegance that even Jamie himself cannot explain. The king of all men is lost for words. This brings me to the question for our deep dive. Do we think that Brian is actually a Selkie in the books or the show? Do we think that Jamie could have possibly inherited the Selkie gene from Brian? And if so, what might lead us to these conclusions? And also, one last thing. If Brian is a Selkie and Jamie is his son, how do we explain Jamie's seasickness? It's actually really ridiculous to see how seasick he gets. It's wild. It really
It
is.
really is. It really is. I'm just going to pre-apologize to you guys because I have so much to say on this topic and I'm probably about to bore all of you with a very long rant.
Never,
Never.
never.
First, I want to touch on Brian.
Oh,
While
I
I
want to touch on
desperately
Brian too.
I had like a delayed reaction. I was like, what?
Oh my gosh. While I desperately want for it to be true and think it's possible for him to be a Selkie, I do think it's more likely that the Selkie legend is used to add a layer of mystery and intrigue to his character. I can also see the Mackenzies starting the Selkie stories as a way to explain the rumors and speculations surrounding Ellen just abandoning her clan and running away with Brian. To the people of that time, a highborn daughter of Red Jacob running off with a bastard son of Lord Lovett is unheard of. So I do believe in the show specifically, but also in a larger degree the books, that Brian and Ellen and Claire and Jamie's stories are meant to be shown as parallels to each other and parallels to Selkie legend. In the books, there is so much more lore surrounding Selkies, water horses, or Kelpies, as they are called, and even to some degree, the Loch Ness Monster.
Here she is, Nessie.
You nicknamed our daughter after the Loch Ness Monster?
I love how we go to two different things.
I swear I'll never hear Nessie and not think of Twilight.
Same.
Oh,
But this poses the question of, are these creatures being added to highlight Scottish folklore, or are Brian and then Claire actually Selkies? Think about it like this. Jamie would have grown up his whole life hearing the legend of his father being a Selkie and stealing his mother from her family. And I think to some degree, he thought of it when he thought of his and Claire's marriage and the parallels to his parents and the stories of the Selkies. And I think deep down, Jamie saw Claire as the second version of the Selkie story that I told earlier. And he thought he took her. And I say took her very lightly, but he did. He took her from her time and from her home. And it would make sense that when he's finally taking her back to Craig Nadoon, he thinks he's doing his duty. He's returning her to her time so that she could once again wear her seal skin and be happy and back where she belonged instead of being trapped in a time that wasn't hers, right? And I know this is going to make Liz mad, but heartbreakingly, by sending her back to Frank, it actually achieved the opposite because it's Frank who stripped her of her Selkie skin and trapped her where she didn't want to be, having her long for the sea, which is Jamie. So All that to say, I think the stories are specifically meant to parallel the legend of the Selkies for both Brian and Ellen and Jamie and Claire's love story in that way.
No, I think that's great, the way you explained it.
Yeah.
This is so mad.
Let's just reel it back in just a little bit. I know that there's so much controversy around Frank the Tank Smash, but I can't say that he stripped Claire of her Selkie skin. I think that Frank plays a much bigger role in the story, and when it comes to Claire in particular, he serves as her first husband, a part of the triad, the person who helped raise Brianna so selflessly, which was really unheard of at that time. Claire needed to go back to Frank, not only to keep the promise that she made to Jamie, but also because it just wouldn't have been safe for her to stay in 1746. Everything
True.
happens on Master Raymond's timeline the way it's supposed to. But that's a deep dive we can save for another day. I do think that Jamie's seasickness, in a way, debunks the idea that he could ever be a Selkie. Jamie's meant to be on land. He's a soldier, a warrior, a leader of men, and the sea is almost like his kryptonite, creating a weakness and a vulnerability that he just cannot fight against. I think Jamie has different gifts or powers from both his father's and his mother's side, but that is also a conversation for another day. Now, Brian is a completely different story, and I do think there could be truth to him being a Selkie. His physical attributes lend itself to hypothesizing about this because, as we saw in the prequel, comments about his hair being a shade of black the likes no one had ever seen before, I wonder if Diana's going to put that line in the book also. But in all reality, as history has shown, stories were told so that people could try to rationalize the things that happened to them or keep the magic of generational storytelling alive. And I agree with you, Doreen, that this folklore adds a layer of mystery and depth to Brian's character. So on a scale of is Brian Fraser a Selkie or not, I feel like I'm somewhere in the middle.
I just had a wild thought listening to all of your really great points. And this may be a little out there, but let's just assume that Brian is a Selkie and he stole Ellen away. Liz mentioned how seasick Jamie gets and how he belongs on land as a warrior and a leader of men.
Mm-hmm.
Could that be Brian's punishment for stealing Ellen away? That his son will never be able to live in the sea?
Oh.
Wow.
Oh my.
What a
That just
zinger. That's a good one.
Absolutely.
that just blew my mind
Yeah.
because the accuracy of that is there.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is so possible.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes me want to learn more about other Selkies' children too. Like,
Yeah.
you know, 'cause sometimes they come to the land and have children. So it makes me so interested to learn. But in my opinion about Brian being a Selkie, I agree with what Doreen said. I really think it's just a story that was told to make sense of what happened. The Mackenzies were really caught off guard and made the Grants furious when Ellen ran away with Brian.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they probably did feed into that lore that Brian was a Selkie because that was the only way they could explain it to everyone without making the clan look bad. And it worked. It was a well-known story throughout the Highlands. We even heard Duncan Kerr mention it to Jamie at Ardsmuir.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Let's
That
talk
scene always
about
stuck out to me.
Duncan Kerr.
Love
Okay,
this
so
scene.
as we recall from Outlander season 3/book 3 Voyager, Duncan Kerr was a raving man that was found by redcoat soldiers wandering the moor. The redcoats took Duncan Kerr back to Ardsmuir prison, where Lord John Bay all day was the new governor, and Jamie was a prisoner there at that time. In his state, Duncan had mentioned the lost Jacobite gold, and this information, of course, was of great interest to the king. Not speaking many languages, Lord John Grey was limited in his ability to understand and translate what Duncan was saying in French and Gaelic. So Jamie was called in to speak with Duncan and translate for Lord John Grey. However, when speaking with Duncan, Jamie didn't only get information about the lost Jacobite gold. There were references made to Dougal and Colum being gone, Ellen Mackenzie running off with a Selkie, and treasure being left at Selkie Island by a Butchak Ban, a white witch who we all know has been referred to as La Dame Blanche.
You know, Liz, when you talk about that scene with Duncan Kerr, I'm always wondering where the hell did he come from? Like when I see scenes like that, I need to know what's going on the other side. So if you haven't already read past prologue, it's a short story that Diana wrote. You will actually find out who Duncan Kerr was with, and I think you'll be really surprised. Speaking of novellas, I know this isn't your favorite one, Doreen, but Exile. It really is one of my favorites.
It's the artwork. It's so bad. It's
It really is.
borderline indecent.
Okay,
Oh
so
God.
quick story time. Jenny actually got bananaed for showing one of the pictures. She got a little slap on the hand for
Wait for
8 minutes. She couldn't go live for 8 minutes. That was crazy.
I have a really graphic picture of Jamie bathing in the lake, but the pictures, if you have not seen the pictures in this book, picture an adult comic book. And
It was a
it's
picture, all right.
accurate.
I will say
It's
that.
accurate. But if our listeners are not familiar with it, Exile is a graphic novel. Think of an adult themed comic book. The very beginning sets the stage with the legend of Brian Fraser. Jamie is returning home from France, and Murtaugh is waiting for Jamie's arrival by sea. There's a seal barking in the distance, and Murtaugh asks him, Brian, are you guiding your son home? A few things come to mind with this scene. One, I think Murtaugh really doesn't think he's talking to Brian. It's almost like seeing a cardinal after someone has died. You think it's a sign from them. Murtaugh might see the seal as a sign from Brian, knowing that Jamie's almost home. It's also believed that Selkies are souls trapped after death. You know, the space between, cough, cough.
Mm-hmm.
the, the next interesting thing in Exile is Claire comes through the stone soon after this. Is there a reason Diana wrote it this way? Is she trying to get the reader to think that perhaps Claire is the Selkie? That the stones are a metaphor for shedding her previous skin and then capturing the attention and love of Jamie? These questions are the exact reason why I say all the time the novellas are such an important part of the book series. They're filled with such important info. If I had to give my top three novellas for anyone to read, it would be A Leaf on the Wind of All Hallows, Exile, and The Space Between. You'll be blown away with the filler info in these books.
Okay. First, Liz, I love that you brought up Duncan Kerr. And Jenny, I love that you brought up the novellas because that scene as a whole is really expanded on in past prologue. Well, at least the lead up to it is. And I feel like this is just another example of, like you said, reading the novellas is such an integral part of the Outlander journey. I'd even go as far as to argue that the novellas can be more exciting than the main series. That's
Absolutely.
truly where all the magic is.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Past prologue introduced some really interesting insight as well. For those who have not read the short novella, it's a crossover story found in an anthology series called Matchup. In this novella, we actually see when Gaelish travels to Selkie Island and leaves the jewels. Now, we alluded to that above. Um, should I tell them? Should I tell them who she's with?
Yeah.
She's with Duncan Kerr. So the scene where we see that man walking the road and they come upon him and they bring him to Lord John Grey, he had been with Galis. She had been living with him. Totally blew my mind. Totally blew my mind. Now that we know who left Duncan disheveled along the road, does it surprise anybody? Didn't surprise me. It was Galis who was leaving the jewels on Selkie Island right before that very scene. It gives insight to why Duncan appeared so deranged because Galis had left him to his own devices.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. That message that Duncan Kerr gives to Jamie literally haunts my dreams. I
Mm-hmm.
keep trying
Yes.
to I just it's driving me nuts. Like I keep trying to break it down and figure out the full meaning of it. He talks about the gold, the white witch, the Mackenzies. But as Liz kind of explained earlier, of course the main message that Lord John wanted was about the gold. And this is the gold that King Louis of France supposedly sent to the Bonnie Prince, but arrived too late. And in
Mm-hmm.
the book, Jamie escapes to a place with the shrine of Saint Bride, who was also called the White Witch. And in the show, we know he escapes to Selkie Island.
Mm-hmm.
In both places, he's thinking or hoping Claire will be there.
Mm-hmm.
He also
Oh.
finds
That was
the
sad.
same thing in both locations. He finds a box containing coins and jewels. And we know this comes into play later because young Ian volunteers to swim out to Selkie Island to retrieve that box in order for Jamie to pay Leary. And then
Mm-hmm.
young Ian gets kidnapped in the process. And apparently, all that's explained in past prologue. I have to read that.
Yes, you do. I loved Past Prologue so much. It was a quick read. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I need for you to read it because I need for all of us to theorize about some things
Oh
that
my
happen
God.
in that book. Every day
Same.
in our group chat, I'm like, I need to talk about this. I need to talk about this.
Same.
Come on, Katie. Come on, Katie.
Next topic, changelings. This one is a little bit of dark folklore. Changelings lore is explained to or portrayed in Outlander as a ritual of sorts, where fairies are believed to steal human babies and replace them with sickly fairy child, which is referred to as a changeling. A supposed changeling is often identified by illness, lack of growth, unusual behavior, excessive crying, or physical abnormalities. Parents would sometimes take the presumed changeling to a fairy haunt, like a fairy mound or a place where the wind sounded peculiar, and leave it there with offerings of food. The hope was that the fairies would see their own changeling exposed and return the human child. Having a medical background, the changeling folklore is really interesting to me. One of the many stories told is that within an instant, the child becomes hungry with an insatiable appetite. They are not able to gain weight and become increasingly cranky. And that's what leads the parent to believing their child was replaced by a changeling. Immediately, my mind goes to diabetes. The big signs of diabetes are increased hunger, thirst, and weight loss. It amazes me how far we've come in terms of medicine from the 1700s. Insulin wasn't used until 1922. It's so sad there was no cure, but I'm seeing this through 21st century eyes, and I can't imagine what it would have been like then. Would I believe the folklore, or would I be like Claire and Galus? Who knows?
Mm. I
Mm.
have to say that while this folklore in particular makes me a bit sad, I also find it so interesting to learn about what people believed hundreds of years ago and the lengths that parents would try to go to help their children and believing in what they were doing. Living in a modern world,
Mm.
medicine has progressed so much. And you're right, Jenny, there were most likely explanations for the symptoms these children were experiencing, like blood sugar issues or colic, but the knowledge and understanding was not there. Even something like
Mm.
jaundice now is treatable, but definitive measures for care were not known then. Parents coped the best way they knew how, and believing in these folklores, if it brought them a sense of peace to imagine their healthy babies running with the fairies, then they probably thought that was the best thing, and they found a way to rationalize and continue on.
I agree. This is just one folklore that really breaks my heart.
Mm-hmm.
It's wild how different the old Scottish tales are from the picture we have of fairies now. These weren't
Mm.
glittery little Tinkerbell figures granting wishes. They
Mm-hmm.
were unpredictable, dangerous, powerful beings who could bring fortune or disaster depending on how you cross them.
Yeah.
The stories have a darker edge, reminding people to tread carefully around the unseen world. And these
Mm,
stories were believed because people needed a way to explain the unexplainable. These
mm-hmm.
stories gave meaning to things they couldn't otherwise make sense of.
Yeah.
Yeah, really sad.
I
Really, really
It
sad.
is. It
I agree with
is.
what you guys are saying, but honestly, I don't love the changeling storylines. I get really bothered thinking that this kind of thing really happened. And it always shocked me that no matter the time period, anyone could think leaving their child outside in the elements would be okay. And I
Mm,
get it. These women, they're products of their time, and especially living in the Scottish Highlands, folklore and your belief guides everything that you do. But it's still just impossible for me to grasp just putting their baby outside to die. And again, yes, I get it. It's folklore. And in this episode right here of our podcast, we're talking about mythological creatures and time traveling through water. But I just can't imagine ever, as a mother, doing something like that. I mean, that being said, I recognize they in the show are using this folklore as a way to explore grief and in the books as well, they're trying to highlight the stark difference of an 18th century woman and a modern woman, like Claire. And that scene specifically in the show, I think it was done very brilliantly because it gave us as a viewer a stark contrast between Galis and Claire. Claire
mm,
being compassionate and nurturing, and Galis being kind of cold hearted lunatic who's just on a singular mission you
mm-hmm.
know? And I always talk about this, but I would be like Claire. If I went back in time 2 days, I accidentally traveled through the stones. I'm serious. I'd be accused of witchcraft. I'd be done. I'd be out there saving that baby. I could not do it. And I mean, honestly, do any of you think that you guys would survive? Because I could not without modern medicine or hot baths. That's all I'm saying.
Mm.
All right, I have a couple thoughts here. You said you'd be like Claire. I'd like to think I'd be like Claire because, of course, I would run and save a baby. But you said I'd be like Claire immediately. I was like, but I love Dougal. I'm gonna be Gaelic. There's no way. But I promise I would use my tricks for good in a way. But I'd like to think I would be able to last. But I'm with you. I like a scalding hot bath up to my nose and the modern comforts of an ice cold Coke.
Listen, if there's a chance I'm finding Jamie Fraser or Roger, Mac Daddy, woo, then yes, I'm doing whatever I can to survive, okay? But in all seriousness, I think I could survive at least for a little while. I had Girl Scout experience as a kid, and I feel like I remember at least a little bit of what I learned. I do enjoy nature. I could have a little garden, maybe a small farm with some animals. I don't know how to build a house. I don't know how to ride a horse. So having to travel miles to a town to get necessities would be so hard. I need medication for my seasonal allergies, air conditioning in the summer, heating in the winter. So those are reasons I think it would be really hard to survive.
Yeah, I mean, I could assist you in building the house, but that's really all I've got. That's all I've got.
I think Jamie would really do a good job keeping us warm too. We know how hot his skin is, so
Absolutely, yeah.
I could go without him.
Agreed. Agreed.
So for me, part of me thinks yes. I tend to be able to fit in and adapt to the setting I'm in. But there's a larger part of me that knows I'd be tried as a witch within days of being there because I'd open my mouth and say something I shouldn't, and that would be it. Plus, I know how heavily I rely on air conditioning and ibuprofen for my back issues. But I mean, for Jamie Fraser, I learned to live without that.
I would just hope that my
Yeah,
husband came with me because he could definitely build me a house. That's all I'm
there
There
saying.
you
you
go.
go.
There you
There
Yeah.
you
go.
then
There you go.
let's all hope we're
Absolutely.
friends when we travel back at this point. We can kind of build a
Mm-hmm.
village.
The collective
Mm-hmm.
effort.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of magical stories, I think we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the folklore surrounding other mythological creatures in Outlander. There are so many, and another really interesting one is the water horse, also referred to as a kelpie. Similar to selkies, water horses or kelpies are shape-shifting spirits from Scottish folklore. However, while selkies appear as seals, kelpies appear as beautiful horses with a beautiful dripping mane of hair by rivers and lochs to lure unsuspecting victims to a watery grave. They can
Mm.
also take human form and are said to be overwhelmingly beautiful and alluring. It is also said, though, that they have weakness in their bridle, which, if captured, can give a person power over the kelpie. Many kelpie stories serve as cautionary tales warning children away from dangerous waters and women against trusting, handsome strangers. What do you think the kelpie's role is in Outlander's story, and are there any scenes that you really wish the show would have added or expanded on more with regards to kelpies?
Does anyone else, when you hear water horse, think of Elsa in Frozen 2? Yeah.
Frozen is actually my favorite ride at Disney, just letting you guys know.
You can tell I'm a mom, huh?
Yep.
Yeah, Frozen's a little
For
after my
sure.
time. I know who they are,
Yeah.
but I haven't seen it.
Mm-hmm.
I have always been really fascinated by the stories of the water kelpies in the books, specifically with regard to Roger and his undeniable pull towards Brianna. It was an underlying parallel to their relationship all throughout. But I remember specifically in chapter 18 of Drums of Autumn when we see Roger propose to Bree. That's when the light bulb went off for me.
Roger McDaddy.
Yeah, I love you, Liz, but I refuse to refer to Roger as Roger McDaddy ever. But
Fair.
anyways, when Roger's proposing, it plays out a bit different in the books. Roger and Bree are on this walk, they're down by the river, it's very romantic. And Roger is looking at Bree, and he starts this inner monologue in that moment. And it's extremely powerful and insightful to the way he feels about Bree. He's thinking to himself, and these are his exact thoughts. Water droplets gleamed in a fine mist on her skin, glowed like pearls and diamonds in her hair. Her eyes were wide and dark as a loch, with secrets moving, half seen, half sense, under rippling water. She was a kelpie, for sure, a water horse, with her mane flowing, skin glowing, and a man who touches the creature is lost, bound to it, forever taken down and drowned in the loch that gives it home. Now, for me, again, this line in the Fiery Cross, and sorry, Liz, I know this is not your favorite book.
She mentioned Bruno.
We do not talk about Bruno.
We do talk about Bruno, but anyways, in Fiery Cross, they're having this fight, and Brianna is being unreasonable. And Roger says, I may be a fool, but I love you. And in those moments, it sounds insignificant, but I realized the story of the Kelpie is the story of Roger's love for Brianna. Even though Kelpies are a bit evil and they try to lure people into their own death, they also represent an irresistible attraction and almost a fatal love. And in folklore, they often represent the idea that things are not always what they seem and that temptation can lead to ruin. That makes the Kelpie a powerful symbol of love, a love that is so intense that it feels impossible to resist, even when it's leading you towards danger. Now, to me especially, right? In the books, this is how Roger feels about Brianna. She's dangerous and wild, and she's very ahead of her time. She's fiercely independent, she's capable. And Roger, right, he's a very conservative man of his time. And no matter how hard he tries to resist Brianna, she continues to just lure him in. The same way a water kelpie will lure you in. Even so far as Roger following Bree into the stones is a perfect example of him being unable to resist the danger that lies ahead of him by going through the stones because his pull to Brianna is just too strong to even care about the danger. So All that to
Mhm.
say, I think these things just symbolize his deep and binding attachment to her, despite the risk and challenges that that love brings. And I get that it's really impossible to adapt inner monologues like that, but I really wish the show would have added some of this because their love story as a whole in the books and just
Mhm.
Brianna's hold on Roger and that power was so much deeper and fleshed out. And Brianna in the books really was a Kelpie, like the good parts of it. Anyways,
Mhm.
I'm
I
like
can't believe
mind blown by that.
Yeah.
Right? Absolutely. Like that's these are the things that people want to know when they talk to
Mhm.
Doreen. Like, where did you get that from? Like, it's not there, but yet it's there. Like, honest to God.
It's
One of
so
well,
my
true.
thank
favorite
you.
parts. It's the truth. It's the truth.
It
One of
is.
my favorite parts of the show and book, specifically chapter 18, Raiders in the Rocks. In the show, it's Rent, the story of the water horse told by Rupert. It's after
Mhm.
Jamie and Claire are married and they are still collecting rent. Night falls and they are sitting around the fire, and Rupert begins telling stories. That man is a born storyteller. The
Yes.
story of the
Hmm.
water horse is that he had stolen away a woman who had come to gather water, and he took her below the lock to live as his wife. It is said that
Mhm.
when one mounts a water horse, you would not be able to dismount, similar to Roger never being able to let go. The wife is new to living under the water, is cold and unhappy. So the water horse goes back up, finds a man who lives along the water, who is known to be a builder and a carpenter. What you have to know about kelpies and water horses is that they are beautiful. This one also had a bright silver bridle and golden reins. The man is so entranced he couldn't help but mount the horse. He too is unable to free himself of the pull of the water horse. He is taken below to build the wife a hearth and a chimney, but was promised to be returned when he was done. What I love most about this story is Rupert explaining the reason why part of the lock doesn't freeze over because of the chimney below. It's folklore like
Mhm.
this that attempts to explain things that aren't understood with a bit of whimsy. When Grant O'Rourke tells this story in the show, I seriously wanted to contact the app Sleep, where you listen to stories that put you to sleep, and have him record that story. It is done so
Mhm.
Yes.
like he's a natural. Even in real life, I really believe he's a natural storyteller. It's done so
Yeah.
beautifully. It's one of my favorite scenes
Yeah,
brought
that
from the
would.
book to the show. Also isn't an obvious connector storyline regarding Kelpies. The way it's told, you think it's just a sweet story told by Rupert, but it absolutely explains both Brian and Ellen and Roger and Brianna's deep love and pull for one another.
Yes, Jenny. Rupert telling the story is one of my favorite parts. He is
Definitely.
just so mesmerizing as a storyteller. We actually see this folklore again when Claire has been taken by the Browns. Claire, in an effort to barter for her life, revisits the story of the water horse when the men reach the river and are trying to figure out how to cross with their wagon. Some of the men at this point in the story, they fully believed Claire was a conjure woman and that she would put a spell on them. One of the men tells Claire that he wants to help her escape, and in response, Claire says, "When we are in the water, just let me go. The water horse is my friend, and she will carry me away." Considering that the show did not explore Claire's interaction with Nessie in the books, it was so great to see this folklore pulled in, and it connected to earlier Outlander as well. Switching gears, I do think that water in general holds a lot of symbolism because it takes the shape of whatever is containing it. That
Oh,
speaks volumes when it comes to measuring the depth of the love between Brian and Ellen, and Roger and Brianna, and even Jamie and Claire. I also would have loved to have more of the Selkie versus Kelpie lore because both of them share similarities and contrasts that could lend itself to the story.
Yeah, Rupert telling that story is one of my favorite parts as well. Honestly, Claire is kind of like the water horse. She's this mysterious presence that doesn't really fit in, and people don't always know what to make of her, but they're drawn to her anyway. She shakes things up just by being there. She challenges people's way of thinking, sometimes causing people to change their minds or decisions. And she kind of turns everything upside down without even trying.
Yes, she
She really
does.
does.
It's a lot like the water horse, where this mysterious and powerful thing comes into a place and changes everything around it. Claire does the same thing. She's fearless, smart, and stubborn. And just by being herself, she makes everyone around her rethink what they thought was possible.
Mm, mm.
Man, Katie, you know what? I have read this series and watched the series for so many years, and I have never once thought of Claire and compared her like that. That was really a brilliant analogy. I really loved that.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more mythological creature today, the Nuckelavee, Buck
Mm.
McKenzie. And
Ooh.
what the heck is a Nuckelavee? Who knows? But the Nuckelavee is a mythological sea creature that appears as a horse-like demon when it ventures onto land. It's a unique and solitary creature that possesses extensive evil powers and toxic breath.
Mm.
It's it's said that the Nucklavee's breath was thought to wilt crops and sicken livestock, and it was considered responsible for epidemics and drought. In season 7, Bree, Roger, and the kids are back at Lollybrock in the 1980s. Mandy and Jemmy keep telling Roger and Brianna that there is a Nucklavee living on the property, stealing food and wreaking havoc.
Mm.
Roger and Bree brush it off as children's talk and dramatics, but it turns out there was a strange person living on their land, Roger's 4 times great grandfather, who had followed them through the stones. And we hear Roger explain to the children that Nucklavees are basically horse demons and they aren't real. And then Buck is revealed to be the Nucklavee. Why do we think the show added in the folklore about the Nucklavee, especially with regards to Buck?
Mm.
Okay. Truth be told, I knew nothing about Nucklavees when I first read about them in Echo and Bone. So, like I do, right? I did some research. In addition to all that Katie just said, I discovered that the Nucklavee is said to hate fresh water and is kept in the sea
Mm.
by a benevolent sea goddess. So, another water creature.
Why are there so many water creatures if it's not relevant? Why?
Because water portals are real. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
That being said, this lore felt very significant to me. Because why would Diana choose this creature as a way to describe Buck in his presence at Lollybrock? I immediately felt that this was done in an effort to foreshadow Buck's story. In the show where it stands
Mm.
now, and even in the books, we have no closure on Buck and his story. And we really don't know if we ever will. We don't know if his heart condition is travel sickness, if it has made it so that he is trapped in the time the same way that the Nuckelavee is trapped in water. I personally view it as a parallel, almost like Buck is trapped because of his fear of the stones, and the Nuckelavee is trapped because of his fear of water. Now, I don't know, it just felt really relevant to me because I've also thought about Buck's heart condition being caused by him existing in a timeline that he shouldn't be in because let's face it, he's about to be born. Galus is about to give
Mhm.
birth to him. And based on everything that we know about travel lore, you can only exist one version of yourself in each timeline. So, similar to
Mhm.
how the Nuckelavee should not be existing in fresh water because it's dangerous, Buck shouldn't be existing in this timeline because it's dangerous. And I know that even
Mhm.
in the show, like it really wasn't fleshed out and it was very ambiguous. I do think him being referenced as a Nuckelavee was a nod to book readers and a place to like add this folklore into the story.
So I just have to say one thing really quickly. You guys know that I'm not far enough in the books to get the later stories, but Doreen and Jenny, you guys have talked a lot about how there are no answers to Buck. And I really want closure for him. I really hope we get that in season 8. I really
Yes.
hope we see something with closure for him in season 8. I just had to put that out there. I do think that the Nuclevi was particularly included in the show to express the connection that Jemmy had to the past and to his granddad, Jamie, who would tell him lots of stories about the folklores of Scotland. Jemmy, being conceived and born in the past, really only knew that part of his life as reality until having to travel forward with his family. I think that this part of the storyline is showing how Jemmy is rooted in the past, living in the future for a time, and there are many threads connecting Roger, Brianna, Jemmy, and Mandy to the past, one being the folklore.
Sorry, the first time I read that when we had it in the script, it blew my mind, and it just blew my mind again because that pair again, like I feel like, and this is why we have such a good synergy because I feel like I'm the kind of person that when I read something, I understand it and I really can move forward and theorize on it and pick up on things. But not necessarily when I'm watching the show. And I feel like Katie and Liz, your superpower is watching the show and picking up on things that I never thought about. And me and Jenny are more like, oh, I read this sentence and this really stood out to me. And I just think that's such a great
Yeah,
balance. I just wanted to say
it
that.
Oh,
Absolutely.
is.
yeah. Yeah.
Thank you
Absolutely.
so much.
Yeah, thank you.
When you're having a conversation with a friend or family member and a weird topic is brought up, but you have the answer, this is a perfect example of something they all look at you and they're like, how do you know that? Well, I am forever Googling definitions, origins of words, and things like that. So this is what I found. During the 1700s, they burned certain types of seaweed, which resulted in soda ash. It was also known as kelp. Kelp was used in the making of glass, soap, and the bleaching of fabric and paper.
Mm.
Now, it's said that when they would burn the seaweed, it would enrage the Nuclevi, sending him on a rampage, killing both people and livestock. What they didn't know at the time is that burning these types of seaweed, it actually released arsenic into the air, which in turn would kill both humans and livestock. I'm
Mm.
guessing someone along the line finally figured out the connection. Now, I do find it interesting that burnt seaweed is called kelp, but there isn't a mythological connection. Only in more recent stories, like Fantastic Beasts from the Harry Potter story, do they intertwine kelpies with being seaweed monsters. Personally, I
Mhm.
think there may be a connection, but the story may have been lost over time. Seems like too much of a coincidence for it not to be connected. But I really hope people are understanding the theme of using storytelling to explain the unknown or what the time wasn't able to be understood.
So,
Mm.
for our listeners, I'm looking at Jenny right now, wondering how much time it took you to research all of that.
I, I, I am really starting to like dive into my inner nerd here. You can just see from
Good for
behind
you,
me.
girl.
So
Good for you.
So I also found that Nuclevies are a warning of danger, misfortune, disaster, and sometimes even death. So it's
Wow.
really interesting that Jemmy calls Buck the Nuclevy because we didn't really know what to expect when Buck showed up. The last time we saw him, he tried to have Roger killed, and there was definitely danger heading their way because
Mm.
Jemmy was going to be kidnapped by Rob Cameron. Roger was going to travel back in time to where he thought Jimmy had been taken to, but Jemmy was actually still in the 1980s.
Hmm.
Buck is going to have travel sickness. So, will he be able to travel again? Like Liz said, that's one answer we absolutely need. We were shocked when you guys told us that was not in the books.
Yeah.
And then we have Rob Cameron attacking Bree. So, yeah, I'd say there sure was some danger coming their way.
Bree got him back good with that frying pan, though, so that was good.
she
She really
did. She
She
did.
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 I so I say this all the time, but Katie always just really blows my mind on the stuff that she picks up with. You
Hmm.
know, it's just picks
Aw,
up
thank
Yes.
you so
on.
much.
Yeah. And I think that was a great
Aw,
point
thank
because there
you.
there really was a lot of foreshadowing there. And talking about Buck's open-ended fate, like just gets me so excited for season 8 and book 10 because like
Absolutely.
Liz was saying, like we
Yeah.
need that
Mhm.
closure. We really do. But
I
Yes.
need an
Yeah.
ending. Mm-hmm.
yes. But all that being said, I really enjoyed this topic today. It's been really magical. I like diving into the folklore of the story, but I think unfortunately we've kind of hit our time for today.
Yeah, this
Mm.
was a long one. We had so much information we wanted to get out to you folks, and I hope you really enjoyed it. We thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to send in those emails because we want to know what you'd like to hear us talk about.
Keep tuning in for more Outlander deep dives and theories.
We will see you in the space between.
And until next time, stay Outlander unhinged. If you've enjoyed our podcast, please consider following us on social media at the Outlander Unhinged or on TikTok. Doreen is at Doreen's Place. Jenny is at the Gen X Quilt Co. Liz is at Classy Sassy Sassenaki. And Katie is at the underscore Sassenach underscore corner. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.